We are going to do a high-level overview today, or in this video, about practice by numbers with regards to the main areas that you should really be tracking. I mean, there's a lot of numbers coming at you, but I believe that these are kind of the main areas overall of the practice. And when you can really start to learn how to track in a specific area, you know how to troubleshoot, how to jump in and work on a specific area. So all doctors are worried about new patients. When I speak, people raise their hand and they're like, oh, we want more new patients. Everybody wants more new patients, but there's more to fixing your practice or growing your practice or tightening the ship than just getting new patients. However, we market, we ask for word of mouth referrals. So new patients are a key part of the overall, let's look at the practice. So do you want to show us just kind of what practice by numbers can tell us about the new patients?
Yeah, so new patients, Laura. So this particular office saw 42 new patients last month, and that's what we're looking at last month. And half of their patients came from internal referrals. So 21 of their patients, right, which I'm marking over here, came from internal referrals. That means there's an internal marketing program in this office that's working. That's awesome, because the internal referral patients are the best patients because they already come, from friends and family and others.
Right.
And another good thing in this office, what I see is that they're entering their referral sources for every single patient, because that's extremely important. Because 6 months down the line, when you're wanting to decide where should you put your marketing dollars, if you don't have this information, it's going to be difficult for you to decide, is that postcard
right
that you send to the houses, did that work for you?
Right.
And we'll dig into it in a different video. We'll dig into how do you measure the quality of a referral source.
Exactly. And how do you get your staff to enter the referral sources? Because that is key when they're putting in the new patient information.
Right.
Yep.
Another extremely important thing to understand with new patients is how many new patients do you need to grow or to even stay flat? And we'll also cover the details of that, but at a high level, this practice has 44 new patients that are going inactive in the month of January.
And what do you mean by, how do you guys determine with practice by numbers what is going inactive?
That's patients that haven't been seen over 18 months.
Okay. So this practice, the focus might be on new patients, but are they really focusing on going inactive? So that's an area to really jump into and see what can be done about reactivation and getting those patients back, getting them to pre-appoint for their next appointment. There's some areas in there that the new patients are great, but if we could get that inactive number down, they'll actually see some growth from that. Okay, great. I'm gonna go off of that because I know you would love to jump into this, but that's what we'll do in the other videos. The next thing that I think is important, once you get the new patients in, is the case acceptance. How are patients accepting treatment? So what does practice by numbers offer us in that area?
Yeah, so in that area, what we try to show is that different statistics that any practice should be looking at. And that's the treatment acceptance is something that there is no national averages. And before we get into the numbers, is understanding that treatment acceptance is a very doctor-specific, practice-specific, demographic-specific, and even insurance-specific number. Okay? The important thing to understand with treatment acceptance is establish your baseline. Know what it is for the past 2, 3, 4, 6 months. Okay? And then make changes to have a positive impact on it.
Yes.
So what are we looking at over here in this office? Last month, again, the same time frame, last month they presented about $250,000 of treatment, and out of which $82,000 was scheduled or completed during the same month. So either the work's already done or it's on the books to be completed soon. Okay. And what are these different categories? This tells you and helps you understand what is being presented to the patient and what is being accepted by them. So if I look here, restorative basic was about $28,000 was presented. And if I click on that, and the same thing, restorative basic, about that much was accepted. So you can try to understand what is being presented and what is being accepted.
That's excellent. And we're not going to jump too deep into this right now, but one of the things that I love, that I'm excited about, is that this can get broken down to the doctor level so that we can track each one of our doctors and how they're doing with case acceptance, and really be able to get in there and say, maybe one doctor's better at selling a certain type of case, and maybe those doctors should only do that, or maybe we need to get training for the other doctors. So it's really kind of hones in into the details of where we need to focus our attention.
Right.
Okay, that's wonderful. That alone, just to recognize, I think a lot of, and this again is from the office manager, front office rocks perspective, but I think a lot of times when we present cases, the doctor sees this from the patients. Yeah, that sounds great. I want to do it. And they leave every treatment plan presentation expecting that the patient's going to do it. And then when we go to present the money and the insurance is where it potentially falls apart. So I think that this statistic is really important for the doctors to track, because that's going to make them more proactive to see where are we good at closing cases, where are we having problems, where should we spend more time with the patients. You know, like you said, you put attention on it and the statistic is going to get better. All right, so the next thing that I want to keep us on track is, I know you're looking to look at more, but we're going to keep going because I'm out of time. Appointing for the next appointment, pre-appointment. So where do we track that in Practice by Numbers?
So that's also available on the main page right here. So at the bottom, we're looking at, so there's two types of pre-appointment. One is a doctor pre-appointment, and second is a patient pre-appointment. And actually, there's a third type of pre-appointment called a new patient pre-appointment, which is to make sure that every single new patient that comes in is leaving the office with some appointment or another, because you just spent hundreds of dollars acquiring that patient. Okay, but since you keep me honest and on time, let's just talk about hygiene pre-appointment. So this particular page shows us, this particular panel shows us out of 375 hygiene patients that were seen, 313 of them have a specific hygiene appointment, meaning it's a hygiene appointment in the future, versus 335 have any appointment in the future. Okay. And the reason we showed both these numbers is there are many practices who only make a hygiene appointment, but they don't enter any codes in that appointment. So in that case, well, we can't tell if it was a hygiene appointment or might have been any different kind of an appointment. So for practices that do enter the codes for their next hygiene appointment, the top number is what they should be always looking at, 83%. Now, is this number the highest it could get? No, I think there's room for improvement. And right in this practice, this number could get up to 95, 96%. And that would be a good goal to have.
Right. And that's when we get into this area, when we do the videos, we're going to talk, a lot of that has to do with verbal skills and prioritizing hygiene in the dental practice. And that's a huge thing in front office rocks, that it starts from the first appointment, that you're really advertising or really getting that purpose across to the patients that they need to schedule for their next hygiene appointment. So that number can definitely improve. How about cancellations and no-shows? So now we've got people to appoint, we get them case acceptance, they've got an appointment, but then we get that last minute coughing, I'm not going to make it to the appointment today because I'm sick, or my tire's flat or whatever. How do we track that in Practice by Numbers?
Yes, and that's available on the operational tab. And what this is showing is, again, the same period as last month, 628 appointments, 2% of them were failed. What that means is the appointments were actually broken. They either no-showed or they canceled last minute. But we're going to spend a whole video on discussing how people should be marking their failed and canceled appointments and broken and all that good stuff. But nonetheless, however it's being marked, there are two things very important: understanding your failed and cancel ratio. But it is what it is going to be, apart from getting training and getting verbal skills to make sure that people understand that they can't fail their appointment. But what's even more important is don't have a double whammy in which you lose the appointment and then you lose the patient as well.
Exactly.
And that's where the lower number shows you, is that out of 2% of the failed appointments, what percentage of those people were reappointed to come back? In a lot of cases, people are embarrassed. So if they fail an appointment, they just don't come back to the office. And you don't want that. I mean, yes, there will be habitual breakers that you want to perhaps show them the door, but most other people, you do want them to come back. So these two numbers at the bottom, and if we look into the details a little bit, which I'm sure Laura will say we don't have enough time.
I know, I'm going to be like, wait a minute.
What this is trying to show us is that how many of these patients that did fail or cancel their appointments, if they have their future appointments now, right? There's a huge number of people that don't. So
okay.
That's important.
This is just an example of how we're planning on getting more proactive in the practice. I mean, the doctor's in the back doing the dentistry, I'm running the office, but when we sit down at the end of the day to be able to really dive deep into here and say what happened and what's going on with the practice and where do we need to fix it, I think is huge. All right, let's keep going because I know you're going to keep digging. Reactivation. So how about trying to get patients back that aren't appointed? Where would Practice by Numbers be able to help us with that?
So you mean patients who are going inactive or just patients who, okay, you're nodding. So I think you mentioned the patients that are going inactive. So first of all, it's important to understand what that means, okay? Meaning how big of a pervasive of a problem that is, and is there a problem or not? And I can tell you that we haven't seen a practice where retention was at 95 or 100%. Just doesn't happen because most practices don't have that program. So let's just look at this practice. So 73% retention rate. So what does this mean? 73%. And if I look at a 12-month retention rate, that's at 68%. So what does this mean? 32% of patients that were active 12 months ago are no longer active now. Okay.
Okay.
And that's a very important number to understand, that many patients lost since 12 months, that many patients have either been marked as inactive or they have become inactive just because they haven't shown up to the practice for such a long time.
Right.
And that needs to get reactivated. And most practices don't have a good reactivation program. So how do you get there is Revenue IQ. And we'll just show the high level stuff of Revenue IQ and we'll spend a lot more time in it. So for example, I can go back in right now and say, show me every single patient that has not visited the office in the past 18 months. And I do a search and this will give me a list, and looks like this practice has already started making calls for these offices or for these patients. And when I click right here, it will give me all the information about what happened, what was discussed with the patient. Okay?
And that's great. And so that was my last point to bring up during this video, because I don't want the videos to get too long. People don't have like a ton of time to do this, but we are just starting to use practice by numbers in my practice. And all of the numbers that we just went over that you just showed us, I want to get into there and I really want to learn it. But what I've done thus far is I've gotten my team into this part, which is Revenue IQ, and just got them on the phones. Because the number one way to fix the problems in the practice or to fill the schedule or to reactivate patients is to reach out to them. Get going, get going, get going. And a lot of offices tend to have a lot of planning. We got to print reports. We've got to figure out who's going to make the calls. All I want to do is get my team on the phones. And so the Revenue IQ we've only been in practice by numbers 2 weeks, and my team way more productive than they've ever been when it comes to reaching out to patients, trying to get them back in, because they have this live real data in front of them versus printed reports that get stale and get passed around and all of that. So the point of this video is to show you that you can't fix something that you don't know. You can't improve in an area if you're not watching it. And practice by numbers will show you where you are. It will show you who canceled, who didn't show up, who is going inactive. And then Front Office Rocks will help you and your team learn how to get them back, how to reactivate them, what verbal skills do we need, how do we improve our pre-appointment. So the combination of both of these, of knowing where you are, getting training, and then watching the numbers improve is the point in our videos in doing these. So you did a good job, Rohit. You didn't go off. I've done so many demos with you that you know this thing inside and out, which is amazing. But those of us in the dental office, we don't have a ton of time, so we're going to take this in baby steps. So that just gives you a good overview of what we're looking to start talking about in these videos, and minimally start working with practice by numbers and get your team using Revenue IQ. It's as easy as that, and they can get on the phones and at least start to improve some of the areas while you're learning, where your practice is thus far and where you want to take it.